Hello Raptors fans, and welcome back to Raptors Report. Long time no see. Yep, it's been over a week, and we will be discussing all of the stuff that happened within that week and a little bit time frame, including the game that the Raptors played against the Miami Heat. But before we do that, I want to talk about a player that I did a player evaluation on last week, made a video for it, put it out briefly, and then some of the comments in the comment section made me re-evaluate whether I had done a good enough job scouting this player and considering all of the things about this player and doing enough research. And the guy I'm talking about is Khaman Maluach, who is one of probably the most popular prospects in this year's draft, especially for the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors have their center of the present, Jakob Poeltl, and he is a good player, no doubt about it, but I think people are looking a little further down the road and really seeing Khaman Maluach as a guy who might be able to take up that mantle, learn the ropes under Jakob Poeltl, and then come out the other side as an impactful big man. And I'll explain why I redid this episode. The first of which is that my goal doing these videos is to create content that I can stand behind and that I think is, solid analysis. I am not interested in putting out things that just go out and get clicks. I want it to be useful and reliable. And one of the issues with the video that I put out last week, and many people let me know in the comments, and rightfully so, is that there were two issues. The first of which was that I had not watched enough of Khaman Maluach's international game tape. And I'll tell you why that's important, because with some other prospects, especially the prospects that I've covered already, what they're doing at the college level was kind of what they were doing at the high school level and the junior prep level. Their strengths and weaknesses were on display, not a lot of issue there. Khaman Maluach is a little different here. So first of all, he is an international prospect. He has gone through youth camps and professional leagues in Africa. And one of the things that he was allowed to do there that he is not really allowed to do at Duke is show the breadth of his game, all of the different elements of his game. And at Duke, his role has been diminished considerably. And one of the reasons for that is because they're just completely stacked. Not just the probable #1 overall pick in Cooper Flagg and another top 10 prospect in Con Knipple, Tyrese Proctor, and Sion James. These guys are really good, and they are trying to win basketball games. And it's not necessarily about getting the most out of all of the different prospects on your team. And so you have to consider that. And what I've been seeing at Duke is not necessarily representative of perhaps what he is capable of at the next level, because they really, really have him doing the basics at Duke and not letting him show what he's capable of. So it's important to go back and look at that information. A second thing is that I think I misdiagnosed one of the issues that I've been seeing with him, because I've watched a lot of Duke games this year, obviously. Cooper Flagg is like a phenomenal prospect, and it's very exciting to watch him play. And Duke is a very good team, and the games are, they have that super long winning streak, and, they're an exciting team to watch. And one of the things that when you watch the game is that Khaman Maluach, because he's not scoring a ton of points, you're not asking him to do a lot, you have to kind of watch him on the defensive end, and he also doesn't play a ton of minutes. He has some issues, maybe not imposing his will on the game. And I think that I misdiagnosed that, so I was mentioning that I thought that he had motor issues. And the more that I watch and the more that I think about it, I think it might be that he has a gas tank issue right now, because he is one of the youngest players in this year's draft. He's only 18 years old. He is gigantic, and he plays a very limited minutes per game. And I think really what we're seeing here is a guy who is, can't play hard for a very prolonged period of time just because of the limitations of his body. And why I don't think that that'll be a problem at the next level is that as he, gets acclimated to his size, and once he enters an NBA strength and conditioning program, I think that a lot of those problems aren't going to be long-term problems. So I want to redo things and start things off fresh and give you, I think, a better analysis on him as a prospect. So first of all, let's do a little bit of a biography on him, just quick and dirty. First of all, he is an 18-year-old prospect out of South Sudan. He actually had to leave South Sudan and grew up in Uganda as a refugee. It's actually kind of funny. A guy who was on a motorcycle driving down the road saw him on the side of the road, noticed how big he was, and was like, dude, you got to play basketball. And I guess that idea sort of stuck with him, and he decided to enroll at a youth basketball camp put on by his countryman, fellow South Sudanese ex-NBA pro, Luol Deng. And from that camp, he started drawing interest from some of the other professional teams within Africa. He managed to work his way up through the Basketball Africa League, and he caught the attention of college scouts, among them Duke, and he received a bunch of different offers. UCLA gave him an offer. There were all over the place, but he decided to go with Duke. He said that he was a big fan of Zion Williamson. Who wasn't? So he decided to enroll at Duke. And that's kind of where we are right now. He has had a few months of play with Duke, and there's some interesting things to look at, both from the international side and also from the Duke side. So let's get into what makes him a special player. And you don't have to look very far or think very hard about kind of what makes this guy an intriguing NBA prospect. He is enormous. He is a gigantic individual. He is 7'2" with extremely long arms. So a lot of players at his height will have a physique where they have a lot sort of narrower shoulders. Not so with Khaman Maluach. He has pretty broad shoulders, and in fact, like, his musculature and just sort of the conditioning of his body is pretty developed for a player his age. At 18 years old, he kind of looks like an NBA player already. So that's a very encouraging sign. Maybe he needs to work on his cardio, as I've mentioned in the lead up to this, but in terms of just sort of putting muscle on his frame, he's already at a pretty advanced level. And in fact, I'm not sure if I would want him to put on too much more mass. I think that maybe conditioning his muscles, getting stronger without, bulking up, is probably what I would do if I were trying to bring him along as an NBA center. Because you want him to be able to maintain the things that make him an exciting prospect, such as his foot speed, maintaining some of his explosiveness in jumping. You don't want that kind of stuff to go away. So I think that that's an important point to make. When you watch him on the court, he is a fluid athlete. That is one of the intriguing things about him as a prospect, is that a lot of the time when you see a big man, especially in college, a lot of them look robotic and have low foot speed. And what you want at the NBA level is you want a player who can move around the court, move his feet laterally, be able to cover a lot of ground. And you also want to be able to see sort of fluidity in movement. You want to see them making nice fluid movements, not being robotic. He passes the eye test there very well. He looks like he will not have a problem athletically in the NBA. What I would say about him is that he's more of like a mobile player, where he's able to move around and get to the place that he wants to on the court, rather than, I would say, like a super explosive vertical athlete. I think he is good there. I think he has that in his bag, but it's not like he's a freak there. I think it's more that when he catches those huge lobs, it's simply that he is so large and has such long arms. And unsurprisingly, with his physical attributes, so his good foot speed, his massive height and long arms, he is an unbelievable lob target, especially at college, especially when there aren't a ton of excellent rim protectors. He looks like Godzilla, like most of the time. And when he rolls to the rim, his catch radius is so enormous that they are able to really just feed him those shots in the pick and roll. And it makes their pick and roll so much more dangerous. He's shooting 72% from the field, which is unsurprising because almost everything is within 2 feet of the basket. Most of them are lob dunks. Some of them are just kind of little chippy putbacks and things like that, but the majority of them are dunks. And why not? Dunk the ball if you can. Catch the ball on lobs and dunk it. That's what he's being asked to do, and that is what he is doing. So hard to argue with the effectiveness there. Another good thing about him is that he is a good screen setter. A lot of guys at the NBA level who are setting screens to get themselves open, that's not what he's doing. He is setting screens to get the ball handler open, and just like a traditional big should, he does that, and then he rolls to the rim. And it's a very effective play for the Duke Blue Devils. If you've listened to this channel or you read my Twitter, I am all about the basics when it comes to bigs. I think that is the most important thing that they bring to the table, is, the defensive side of the ball. But also on offense, I think that a lot of the time what you're looking for out of a big is a guy who can do the basics, set good screens, roll to the rim hard, catch and finish, that kind of stuff. And then from that point, you add things to that. And you're not trying to look for a guy maybe with a more advanced skill set, especially if they are skimping on the basics that allow you to run a coherent offense, especially in Darko Rajakovic's system, His offense is all about setting very solid screens and getting players open, finding the open man. Setting good screens is integral to that kind of offense working. So important to point that out. When I did this the first time, I didn't really get into his offensive skill set that much because really he is not being asked. It is very bare bones what he is being asked to do for Duke, which is catch lobs and set screens. At the international level, there is some stuff to talk about. So one of the things is his post game. In college, he is not being asked to post up. He has almost no game tape of any post ups. So when you look at the international game tape, there are some interesting things to look out for. So one of the things that he likes to do is face up to the basket in the mid-post area, sometimes on the baseline, sometimes at the elbow. That is kind of what he likes to do. Face up, and then sometimes he will dribble into a post up, and then he will try to shoot a turnaround jump shot. And I think that one of his upsides as a player is his ability to shoot the ball. Maybe in that play with a post fadeaway or catch and shoot spot up shots. Some of the things that he has done at Duke, they've allowed him a couple of these possessions where he can catch the ball, and if he's wide open, he's allowed to shoot the three. And I think that is an interesting part of his game. One of the good things about him as a player is if you look at his free throw percentage, and there is a lot of correlation between free throw percentage and the ability to shoot at the NBA level, he is shooting around 74% from the free throw stripe. So that is encouraging. And just watching the international game tape, he does like to shoot jump shots, both face up and also with a post fadeaway. That's an interesting skill set to have. The NBA has moved away from the post up and now is a lot about floor spacing, the ability to catch the ball and shoot from the big position, and also being able to operate in the pick and roll. So he has a little bit of a framework to work on there, but I will still say that he is pretty raw. He does not really have a drop step to the basket. He can struggle when there is a defender in his vicinity when he's trying to shoot the ball. But I think that there's a little bit of upside there. I think that him being able to stretch it out a little bit is some intriguing upside, and it's not as if he is completely without upside on the offensive end. So another thing, one of the red flags that was apparent when I did this the last time was his lack of statistical production on the defensive end. And the lack of statistical production that I'm talking about are the traditional center stats, so rebounding, blocked shots, and steals. They're all kind of on the low side. Rebounding is fine. It is, good, solid. He's doing a good job, offensive glass, defensive glass, but he's not elite. The other things are a little bit more concerning. The block shots are low for a player his size and with his characteristics, and the steals are very low. And my thoughts on that are that simply Duke is very stacked, and they have a very good defensive team. Obviously, they have a superstar college talent, two-way talent in Cooper Flagg, who is an elite man defender and help defender, and they've got a really good system that really keeps other teams out of the paint. And for blocks and steals, as you may know, especially when it comes to centers, they are the primary help defender. And a lot of the time, those stats appear when they have to clean up a mess. So if there's a blow-by on the perimeter, the center comes over and then they block the shot, or they get a strip. There's two factors going on here. He is a rim deterrent, for sure. When he is in the paint, teams do not want to drive. Number two, Duke is keeping, their perimeter defense is keeping other teams out of the paint. And then they have another excellent help defender in Cooper Flagg. It's just that I think he's not really being challenged enough to get those clean up the mess stats, because there's no mess. There's not a lot of mess to clean up. So one of the things that I noticed is that the effort can wax and wane. As I mentioned before, I think there's a gas tank issue here. He is only playing around 20 minutes a game. And when he has a lot of energy, you've seen the highlights. His foot speed is excellent. He can cover a lot of ground. He is moving around in the paint, cutting off angles. He can rotate out to the perimeter, keep his hand up, not having to jump in order to challenge shots, and then get back into the paint to grab the rebound or to, play help defense. He can do that. There are times when he is not as engaged, and I think a lot of that is to do with the gas tank. I think that there are some issues there that a strength and conditioning program in the NBA would be able to help out with. There are still a couple of concerns that you shouldn't overlook You should not overlook those concerns, but there are some reasonable explanations for them. And if you watch him in international competition, there are some things that I think that he would be able to build on as an offensive player. On the defensive end, that's really where you could see this super, super high upside. There are not a lot of guys that have his combination of size, his foot speed, his length. He is doing a good job of cutting off angles and playing the primary help defender role. I think that he needs to just get more reps, really just develop in all areas. He has the thing that you can't teach, his physical tools. He could be a player like, say, Rudy Gobert. I think that, as an upside comparison, maybe he could develop something, maybe a little like Brook Lopez, where he can stand on the perimeter and hit some shots while also providing a ton of, help defense at the rim. Those players are incredibly valuable, and they don't get a ton of credit. These guys are not, stars in the NBA where, you see a lot of their jerseys being sold, but they are incredibly important to winning basketball games and especially putting out, very good defenses. But most of the teams that these guys are on are in the top 10, a lot of the time top 5 defensive teams in the NBA, because having a player like that who's able to patrol the paint and shut things down on the inside is incredibly valuable. So he has huge upside as a lob threat. He has huge upside as a defender, a rim protector, rebounder. But again, he has some downside. He is raw on the offensive end. There are some building blocks there, but he is still pretty raw. Maybe he never gets there as a prospect. We've seen a lot of that in the NBA. Sometimes it just does not happen for a player. Their ceiling is high, but they don't reach it. And there's a feast or famine here going on with him as a prospect. And even if he does reach his upside, even if he does continue to improve, it will take him a couple of years, in my opinion, to get and reach his offensive upside. I think that day one, he could come in and make an impact, especially off of the bench on the defensive end. He will change shots. He will patrol the paint. He will make an impact on that end. A lot of those lobs that he's going to be getting are going to be better contested, and it might be a bit more difficult to score. So I think it'll take him a couple of years, and also to develop that other element of his game. If he's going to be a guy who wants to take jump shots, he's going to require reps. He's going to require some time to be able to shoot while under pressure, be able to develop a post game, all of that kind of stuff. It's going to take a little bit of time. But I could see him being, one of the best players in this draft class, and he does have a very high ceiling. So those are my thoughts on him as a player. So with that out of the way, let's get into the game, because the Toronto Raptors did play yesterday against the Miami Heat. They lost that game. We'll get into the player evaluations right away. And I think we're going to start off with RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett, he's been in and out of the lineup. He's been a little inconsistent, but last night was very good. And we saw pretty much all of the elements of RJ Barrett's game on full display. He had 29 points on 11 of 17 shooting. He was 4 of 6 from 3, which is great. He was 3 of 4 from the line. I'll take it. That has been one of the Achilles heels for him as a player on the Toronto Raptors, has been his ability to hit free throw shots. So 75%, I'll take that any day of the week. 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and only 1 turnover. Yeah, I think he was just the best player in this game. He was putting a ton of pressure on Miami's defense on the inside. He was making plays for his teammates. He had a number of really nice passes. He was running the pick and roll very well. And on the perimeter, he was doing his job, stretching the floor, catching the ball and shooting it. He was just, being a very productive player. And then in the fourth quarter, he was very clutch. He was one of the best players for the Toronto Raptors, especially with the game on the line. And I think he should have gotten more possessions. We'll get into that a little bit, because there was a culprit toward the end of the game that might have thrown this game in the trash. You might be thanking your lucky stars that he did, because, this game was imminently winnable, and they easily could have won. It went to overtime, obviously 1 possession for the Raptors, and they would have won this game, but they managed to lose in overtime, and it wasn't really the fault of RJ Barrett. Of course, there were a couple of slip-ups on the defensive end, but, he did a ton on offense, hitting shots, making plays at the basket, distributing the ball. He just had a very good game. Next up, let's go to Immanuel Quickley. Immanuel Quickley also had a really good game, especially shooting the ball. And it's easy to see why the Toronto Raptors went out and got this guy. He is one of the best players in the league at generating his own three-point shot and making a good percentage of them. So he had 23 points last night on 8 of 21 shooting, so that wasn't that great. I think that his inside the arc work was a little shoddy, and that's probably, that's why he didn't get the player of the game here. He was trying to score on the inside, and it just wasn't happening for him. He had a couple of floaters. I think that he really should have just kept jacking up threes, because look at this other stat, 5 of 11 from 3. He has been pretty much on fire from 3 the past couple of games that he's played. 2 of 3 from the free throw line, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 turnover. And it was a good game for most of the players. They didn't turn the ball over that much. Quickley, Barrett, and Scotty, none of them, all of those players only had really 1 turnover each. So this was a good game, taking care of the ball. You can see sort of the thought process here with those 3 players using possessions and being able to make plays. I thought he had a solid game, shooting the ball, making plays. I think that one of the issues with him is his finishing ability, which is why the floater is so important for him, the accuracy on that floater, because he does not have the kind of last step where he's able to just get right to the rim, get it off glass, and finish. And he is pretty diminutive as a player. He's very slight. So one element of his game that he brings to the table that I think is very developed is his ability to shoot off of the dribble and come off of the screen shooting, both of which were on full display last night. And he was also quite clutch, made a bunch of shots. And I like this game from him. Next up, we're going to go to Orlando Robinson. Wow, okay. He's third on this list. Usually, not a big impact guy, but he had a really solid game last night, and I think he was doing a lot of good stuff. 9 rebounds on 4 of 8 shooting. He was 1 of 3 from 3, so they let him shoot some threes here, and he made one of them. I think they're really trying to let him show what he's got, because he's got to contribute on offense. One of the things that I've mentioned about him is that his touch around the rim is not great. So if he can shoot the ball, that can mitigate some of the problems with him as an offensive player. But last night, he wasn't having a big problem finishing. He still misses a couple of bunnies, but he did make enough of his layups that it was pretty good. He was getting offensive rebounds as well. He had 5 rebounds, 3 of them offensive, 4 assists, and 2 turnovers. And those 2 turnovers were both as a result of former Raptor Davion Mitchell drawing offensive fouls on him. One of them was questionable. One of them was a good call. One of them was kind of questionable. And I don't think that really he was doing anything too wrong. He was setting hard screens. And as you know, Davion Mitchell is a guy who can draw offensive fouls on screens. I think this was a really good performance from Orlando Robinson. One of the things you've got to look out for when you watch the game is, does this guy get it? Does this guy understand the game of basketball? And with Orlando Robinson, I think he does. I really do. I think that he has a good understanding of what he should be doing. The screens that he should be setting, they are running the delay action, they're running the plays where he is able to hold the ball at the top of the arc and make the pass to the correct player, sort of run the offense through him a little bit, like they like to do with Jakob Poeltl. He can do that a little bit. He had 4 assists last night. And then on the defensive end, the guy is playing good defense. He had 0 blocks, 0 steals. That does not matter when you are in the correct place at the right time. You cut off penetration to the rim, you provide rim deterrence, and you can test shots. And he does do that, and he can move his feet. And he's making the right decision. One of the things that really, annoyed me about Bruno Fernando was a much better finisher, a better rebounder, probably, than Orlando Robinson. His offensive game was more polished. The guy was just, it didn't click for him. He was not making the correct decision. Orlando Robinson makes the right play most of the time. And when you watch him, you're like, things look like they should. That is a huge thing with centers. That is one of the primary things that you look for from a big, and I think that he was doing that. Next up, we'll go to Scotty Barnes, and I think that this was a pretty poor game from Scotty Barnes. There are some mitigating factors here. He did roll his ankle in the first half. He went down sort of grabbing his ankle, grimacing, screaming a little bit, had to be helped off of the floor, went to the change room, got it taped up, and then the team said he could return. So it looked like more of a tweak than anything, and he was playing pretty good defense, especially against Bam Adebayo. Bam Adebayo tried to post him up a couple of times. Scotty Barnes had a nice swat on him. He was also guarding Tyler Hero, and the reason for that is because they were running their starting lineup at the end of the game. So Grady Dick, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Orlando Robinson, Scotty Barnes in the fourth quarter. There's not a lot of guys in that starting lineup other than Scotty Barnes who can competently guard Tyler Hero. You don't really want RJ or Grady or Emmanuel Quickley on them for a variety of reasons. Quickley's too small. RJ can get, lost on ball screens and screen navigation and off-ball help. And Grady Dick, his foot speed is just not good enough to stay in front of Tyler Hero without gapping him. And then Tyler Hero is just such a deadly shooter. Scotty Barnes did a good job of running him off of the line. The issue with that is that once Hero got into the lane, he makes plays for other guys. He can score with a floater. He can pull up and shoot. He just has a whole bunch of different options. And Scotty Barnes was doing his best, and I think he was the best option with that starting group on him. But yeah, he kind of torched the Raptors. Scotty, unfortunately, had a poor game on the offensive end. Maybe it was because of the ankle, but his turnaround jumper was going okay. He's just not getting enough separation on his drives to really make plays on the inside. And also, at the end of the game, when RJ Barrett and when Emmanuel Quickley were kind of cooking in the fourth and really making plays, even Grady Dick had a good game in the second half, he said, it's my turn. He went for the kind of game winner, the game sealing shot, and just could not make it happen. It was kind of a cluster F of a possession, and he was not able to get a good shot at the rim and kind of, looked off the other two guys who were kind of cooking. Didn't like that. I think he played okay on the defensive end. It wasn't an amazing game from him, but he did have a pretty good game on defense. And then on offense, it was just not a good game. And of course, he did tweak his ankle, but he played 38 minutes. So I don't know what's going on there, especially with the Raptors not being a team that's really looking to compete. Maybe that's a reason not to play him in the second half or in overtime. Who knows? Last up, we'll go to Grady Dick. And this was not a wholly terrible game from him, because in the second half, he did make some big threes and really helped the Raptors get back into the game. The first half was dreadful. It was very poor. He missed open corner threes. His drives are just getting picked up way too easily. He's not creating any separation. He'll use a possession where he catches the ball coming off of the screen, drive into the lane, not be able to beat his man, pick up his dribble, and then have to kick it back out. And that's just not really good offense. On the plus side, he had 10 rebounds, and he really was putting in an effort to use his athleticism to get up and grab rebounds. So good for him. He's trying to really make a contribution on that end with his athleticism. I think that's one way he can help on the defensive end as well with the defensive rebounding. He had 4 offensive rebounds as well. He had 3 steals. And then in the second half, he made 2 threes, 2 momentum threes. So maybe he should have been above Scotty, but in the first half, he was just horrible, and he does have a lot of defensive limitations. He also turned the ball over 4 times. This was, I would say, a mediocre game to a negative game from him with some very high highs, especially, I can't leave this out, he had like a near career-ending poster dunk on Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson came over from the weak side to try and challenge a dunk attempt from Grady Dick. Grady Dick got up. He could have easily flushed it over Duncan Robinson, but it went sort of off the rim. He couldn't control it completely. It would have been pretty sick if he was able to make that dunk. He probably would have been above Scotty Barnes in this evaluation if he was able to make that dunk, but he wasn't. He went to the free throw line, and he was 3 of 4 from the free throw line. He's still able to get to the line pretty well, and his athleticism, he's showing that he can use it in a variety of ways. So, mediocre game from him. Off of the bench, there were a couple of guys that showed their stuff. We'll focus on the young guys here. Jamal Shed had a really good game, 9 points on 3 of 8 shooting. Not too efficient, but 1 of 3 from 3, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, 1 turnover. Running the show really well, very good at getting into the paint, distributing, and also he had a really nice play where he drove into the lane. The help defense was there, but he decided to go in aggressively, explode toward the rim, and got fouled and got to shoot free throws. He also hit a Kyle Lowry-esque bank shot off of the glass late in the shot clock. He looks really good. Just loving what I'm seeing from this guy. I think that he has a bright future in the NBA. I'm just loving what I'm seeing from him. Next up, the other rookie, Jacoby Walter, had a good game. His role is a lot smaller. He's being asked to play off of the ball, catch and shoot. He had 8 points on 3 of 5 shooting, so an efficient night, 2 of 3 from 3-point range. The shot looks great coming out of his hands. 4 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks, and only 1 turnover. So yeah, he's showing his stuff. They're bringing him along slowly. They're simplifying his role. He's being asked to play defense, which he's doing a good job of. He's asking to come off screens. They're asking him to shoot the ball, cut to the rim, play the off-ball role, and he's just doing it. He's doing a really good job. He's filling the small shoes that they have for him right now, and I think as he develops as a player, as he gets older and more capable, they're going to give him more responsibilities. So I think they're taking the right approach with this guy. Last guy we're going to discuss here, Jonathan Mobo. I think he had a pretty good game. 5 points on 2 of 4 shooting. He was 1 of 2 from 3, so he hit a corner 3. It looked good coming out of his hands. Fortunately, he was 0 of 2 from the free throw line. 1 rebound, 0 assists, 0 steals, 1 block. I think he was outplayed by Orlando Robinson. Orlando Robinson got kind of the bulk of the minutes at the center spot. He was doing a better job, I think, rebounding-wise and sort of playing the center role, especially against the size of Miami with Khalil Ware and Bam Adebayo. Those guys can be difficult to contain. I think Orlando Robinson was doing a good job there. But Jonathan Mobo had a pretty solid evening, and I like what he brings to the table. And that was the bench, and that was the game. Pretty exciting game. A couple of standout performances from RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley. The young guy showed up, showed what they were capable of. The Heat played well. I'm not like a huge fan of their team in terms of like how far they're going to go this season, but they've got guys I like. Andrew Wiggins is a very good third option, two-way player. Bam Adebayo kind of ditto. Tyler Hero seems to be coming on as a lead ball handler. Davion Mitchell had a revenge game, but we know what he can do. He's a solid role player. And then they've got some shooters and stuff like that. But I don't feel like they're going to go very far this season. But, you know, I like a couple of the players. And that's kind of what it was. It was a close loss, competitive loss. That's kind of what you want to see, especially if you're looking forward into the draft, seeing the prize, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe, Ace Bailey, those kinds of guys. You want to be able to draft those guys. So this kind of game was encouraging, but at the same time kept the Raptors firmly on that path. And next up, the Toronto Raptors play tomorrow at 6 o'clock against the Phoenix Suns. And the Phoenix Suns suck. They started the season really hot and have since just been completely discombobulated. They're kind of like a two-person team, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Devin Booker's having a hot and cold season, but I'm not a huge fan of really anybody else on their team. I like Royce O'Neal as like a good role player, but then after that, it's kind of slim pickings. I am not a fan of Bradley Beal. I don't think he moves the needle. Nick Richards is, you know, he's a replacement level player. And then there's a bunch of sub-replacement level player guys on their roster. And their defense doesn't look good. Their offenses, they don't really have a good point guard to help them facilitate. Things don't look good there. And honestly, I think the Raptors are not playing amazing basketball, but I think they're playing better basketball, honestly, than the Phoenix Suns are. And the game is going to be in Toronto. So I would actually expect the Raptors to be slightly favored there. But, you know, who knows? The Raptors could, you know, completely lay an egg, or Kevin Durant could go insane, or Devin Booker could go insane. Anything's possible. So I'm looking forward to watching that game. And yeah, that is the episode. Let me know what you think of Khaman Maluach. Is he going to be a superstar, especially on the defensive end? Do you think the Raptors should draft him? Is he going to be a bust? Should the Raptors stay away from him? Let me know here in the comments, and also on Twitter and Blue Sky, where you can reach me at Raps Report. Love talking to Raptors fans. We are the best. I love hearing your comments, love answering your questions. So hit me up. And if you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe, hit the bell icon. It helps the channel grow, helps the algorithm put this content in front of other Raptors fans like you. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.